Training Officer Vex stared at the performance metrics on his display with a mixture of disbelief and dread. The numbers couldn't be right. He tapped the screen twice, hoping for a system error notification. None came. "Is something wrong, sir?" asked his assistant, Officer Lumi, her 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. A clear sign of anxiety among the Trilaxian species. The human, Cadet Blake, has completed all 7 training modules. Vex replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "In a week? That's—" Lumi's voice trailed off as she leaned closer to examine the data herself. "Impossible," Vex finished for her. Or at least it should be. The Galactic Alliance Training Academy had never admitted a human before. Earthlings were classified as Deathworlders, creatures from high-gravity, high-oxygen environments with extreme temperature fluctuations and dangerous levels of background radiation. Such beings were historically considered too unpredictable and potentially aggressive for integration into the delicate balance of galactic society. But diplomatic relations had evolved, and here they were, with Cadet Tom Blake as their first human trainee. "We should inform command," Lumi suggested, already drafting a message on her secondary terminal. Vex nodded, his tendrils curling with worry. "Include the biometric data. They'll want to see everything." Commander Paz of the Academy's High Council reviewed the report for the 3rd time, mandibles clicking in agitation. "The human completed the endurance course in half the allocated time?" she asked the assembled training officers. "Yes, Commander," Vex confirmed, and showed minimal signs of fatigue afterward. "The toxin resistance module?" she continued. Officer Greel, responsible for biochemical training, flicked through his notes. Blake not only identified all 18 common poisons but demonstrated natural immunity to 3 of them. When exposed to the Noxian nerve agent, which typically incapacitates trainees for 20 standard hours, the human experienced only mild discomfort for approximately 40 minutes. The room fell silent as the implications settled over the gathering. "What about psychological evaluation?" Commander Paz finally asked. Officer Trin, the Academy's senior psychologist, straightened her posture. "That's where things get concerning, Commander." Blake displayed unusually high stress tolerance. During the isolation test, most species exhibit significant psychological strain after 12 hours. The previous record was 23 hours held by a Duraxian warrior. And Blake? 48 hours, Commander. We terminated the test when our monitoring equipment showed the human had entered a state resembling meditation. Heart rate stable, brain activity organized. Blake later reported using the time to think through some personal issues and catch up on sleep. Commander Paz's exoskeleton paled. "You're telling me the human used forced isolation as relaxation time?" "There's more," Vex interjected. "The combat simulations." The hologram in the center of the room flickered to life, showing footage of Cadet Blake in the training arena. The human moved with startling efficiency, ducking under obstacles that would have forced other species to pause and recalculate. When facing the combat drones, Blake didn't just defeat them. The human adapted to their patterns, anticipating attacks before they came. "The final simulation was designed to be unwinnable," Vex explained. "It's a calibration tool. We use it to measure how trainees handle inevitable failure." The footage showed Blake surrounded by a dozen advanced combat units. What happened next caused several officers to flinch. Instead of fighting to the last as expected, the human deliberately exposed a vulnerable flank. When the nearest drone moved to exploit this apparent weakness, Blake used its momentum to throw it into 2 others, creating a chain reaction of collisions. In the confusion, the human seized a fallen drone's shock baton and systematically disabled the remaining units. "Blake, won?" Commander Paz asked incredulously. "Yes," Vex confirmed, and afterward asked if there was a harder difficulty setting. Officer Lumi's voice quavered as she added, "The human called it fun." The emergency session of the Academy's Ethics Committee convened the following day. Representatives from 12 species debated the implications of Blake's performance well into the night cycle. "We cannot simply ignore these results," argued Councillor Dren of the Valorian Confederation. If one human can achieve this level of proficiency, what would happen if hundreds joined the Alliance forces? Exactly my point, countered Counselor Jem, representing the Paxian systems. This is precisely why humans have been kept at arm's length for generations. They're simply too dangerous. Professor Xylo, the Academy's senior xenobiologist, cleared his throat. If I may, counselors, I believe we're approaching this from the wrong angle. Yes, Cadet Blake's performance is unprecedented, but consider the environment humans evolved in. Constant threats, predators, extreme weather, disease. Their entire history is a chronicle of survival against overwhelming odds. What are you suggesting, Professor? Commander Paz asked. That perhaps instead of fearing what humans can do, we should learn from them. Blake didn't just complete our training. The human showed us its limitations. While the committee debated, Cadet Blake sat alone in the Academy's arboretum, enjoying the relative peace. A shadow fell across the bench. Mind if I join you? Asked Vex, looking uncharacteristically informal without his officer insignia. Blake nodded, scooting over to make room. I imagine you're wondering about your evaluation, Vex said after a moment of silence. I figured I'd either be kicked out or studied like a lab specimen, Blake replied with a shrug. Neither option seemed worth worrying about. Vex's tendrils curled in what passed for a smile among his species. Actually, the committee has reached a rather different conclusion. They've recommended a complete overhaul of our training protocols, with your assistance. Mine? Yes. It seems you've demonstrated that our standards may be insufficient for the challenges the Alliance faces. The committee believes your perspective could be valuable. Blake considered this. So I'm not being expelled. Quite the opposite. They're offering you a specialized position, training consultant with officer track potential. Huh, Blake said, leaning back against the bench. And here I was thinking I'd been taking it easy this week, trying not to show off. Vex's expression froze. You were holding back? Well, yeah. Didn't want to make waves in my first week. Vex stared at the human for a long moment before his communication device chimed with an urgent message from Commander Paz. It read simply, Bring Blake. Committee reconvening. We may have underestimated our problem. Blake smiled at the clearly unsettled officer. Something wrong? No, Vex lied, wondering what the galaxy had gotten itself into by opening its doors to Earth. Everything's fine.